And Ross, you are a former Tesla bull turned bear on the stock right now. When you look at the results, what do you pay attention to today?
Well, there's the sort of reality, and then there's the medium term, and then there's the hope of the long term. And the reality is that business is in decline. I don't think we need any more evidence that their traditional EV and energy business is in decline. And it's really sad, and it is mostly related to Elon's, interesting way of marketing his vehicles, which has turned off most of the people in the world. And we're just seeing, sadly, a continued decline in the business. On the medium term, we hope that maybe things will get better, but the truth is everything's going against Tesla once we get past this next quarter, which your previous guest was just discussing the fact that in a month and a half the credits go away, and Tesla's going to enter a new reality where it's going to be much more difficult to sell cars just because of the pricing. And then on the long term, what Elon and what the Tesla bulls really want you to focus on is the opportunity in robo-taxi and robots, which obviously is a long time into the future and hard to quantify.
Yeah.
And so as long as you keep looking really far ahead, you can kind of try to find some positive here. But if you're looking at the short and the medium term, it's not really that positive of a story.
Well, let's look at what's happening right now, which is free cash flow. For the period, Tesla says second quarter free cash flow was $146 million. Analysts were anticipating $760 million. That's quite a huge difference, and it's also a drop-off from $664 million in the first quarter. Does Elon Musk care about free cash flow? Do you, as an investor, care about free cash flow?
Well, everybody cares about free cash flow if you look at your own checking account, right? So free cash flow is an important metric, and Tesla has been a highly profitable company in the past with great margins if you just go back 3 years. So, these are all problematic any way you want to slice these financials. And I still think many of the earnings estimates for next year are fantastical at this point when you add in the lack of regulatory credits, the higher pricing of the vehicle, and the general negative sentiment of the business. The idea that Tesla's going to sell, 20 or 25% more cars next year, I think is somewhat fantastical as well. So, as I said, I love Tesla as a business. I care about the EV business, and I care about climate, and I'd love to see Tesla selling, tons of cars and being wildly successful, but they're just not doing what they need to do to sell vehicles.
Ross, out of earnings, we're also seeing the Cybercabs scheduled for volume production starting in 2026. Now, we don't know whether that's January or December 2026, or whether it even matters if there's a month put down. But let's say it's early 2026. Is that early enough to meet and beat Waymo?
Well, the answer to this is still yet to be determined, but I would argue at this point Waymo is well ahead of Tesla. Let's be real, Tesla Cybercabs don't work yet. They have safety monitors in it. They're still mapping. So they're kind of where Waymo was 2 years ago. Waymo was doing the same thing here in Santa Monica with people in the cars, and they were driving around mapping everything. And so if you just extrapolate out a similar timeline, Tesla's several years behind Waymo, and whether they can catch up or not is yet to be determined, because I don't think their software-hardware combination is going to be good enough to work and scale. And that still is yet to be proven. I could be wrong, which I hope I am as a Tesla shareholder, but I think Tesla's going to have a lot of problems. And so the Cybercab will be important for them because they'll have to have different types of hardware on the Cybercab to really get it to work. And so if they launch a new vehicle, they can embed that new hardware in the vehicle. But it still comes down to people want to drive cars. I don't think they're expanding the market for people ride sharing, and people want their own vehicles, and Tesla needs to come out with a lower price vehicle. This is crucial to their success long term in markets like Europe. They need a small, low price vehicle. They've been talking about it, they promised it, they teased it, and Elon's just kind of like pushing you down this robocab route because he can't sell cars.
We're getting some more margin information. So the second quarter automotive gross margin ex regulatory credits was 15%. Earlier we had a gross margin come in at 17.2%, which was better than the estimate. Do these kinds of margins excite you as a shareholder, Ross, in the sense that they are at least better than they were and the ex regulatory credit mightn't be as bad as some feared?
Well, I mean, we used to brag about having 20% margins on the car. So, I guess any margin at this point is pretty good for Tesla. So, I don't parse numbers that how would I say, close. The way I look at it is the overall trend of the business is down. And that is the real troubling issue. Whether it be margins or sales or whatever metric you want to use, the overall arc of their core business is down. And to hope that robo-taxis are somehow going to replace EV sales as the core of Tesla's business is a long time coming, and probably not a reality ever. If you look at the size of Uber's business, I would rather be Tesla than Uber any day of the week. Like, if you actually think about it, like logically, would you rather be Tesla selling $100 billion worth of vehicles at a 15% margin, or Uber with a ride-sharing business with much lower margins and an extremely difficult set of circumstances? So, you know, I still think Tesla should focus on its core and refocus on improving its image and with consumers, because people still want Teslas and they're still buying Teslas to some degree, you know. But as I said, people really dislike Elon until they want to address and rectify that. I get you can go onto Twitter and get your followers to say how great you are, but if you walk out on the street, you know, it's a different reaction when you mention Elon Musk. And so I think until that's solved, it's going to be really hard for Tesla to sell cars.